Hey everybody, thank you for joining us. We are live with our next panel. So I am joined by Jan, Paul, and David. I'll kind of let you guys kick it off here. I believe Jan actually has a video for us. So I will leave you guys to take the rest of the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak on the subject of Iboga and its major alkaloid, Ibogaine, in the context of the implementation of the Nagoya Protocol ratified in November 2011 by Gabon, the motherland of this so precious natural resource. I am honored to be able to carry the synthesized thoughts of a collective of Gabonese people from all horizons who are not able to express themselves easily before you today on a subject that is so sacred to them. Please excuse the form of my intervention being human and factual, without graphs nor statistics, faithful to the principle of the oral tradition practiced in the country of Iboga. I appeal to your ability to approach the Ibogaine subject differently, by soliciting your visualization and projection skills, but also your empathy for the elder who revealed the Ibogaine to the world, the Pygmy peoples of Central Africa. Besides, I take the floor in the presence of Mr. Paul Mombey Indaki, Gabonese Bantu from Benga people, consecrated master in his traditions linked to Iboga, called BWETE, and president of the NGO NEO-BWITI, dedicated to the observation of the evolution of Bantu Pygmies knowledge in the world. Mr. Mombey will take the floor after reading this intervention. First of all, allow me to introduce myself while telling you another Ibogaine story under the prism of the equitability of South-North relations and the protection of biodiversity. My name is Jan Guignot. I am Franco-Gabonese by traditional adoption and marriage. I am an international consultant in intercultural mediation and sustainable development, mainly for Gabon, and I've been doing so for 17 years. I'm also initiated to the British tradition, linked since the dawn of time to the Iboga, by the master Atom Ribenga in 2006. My masters today recognize me as a guardian, and benefactor of their heritage. I beg you to believe that to speak about this subject in front of you today is for me a heavy responsibility. The speeches made during this event will be translated into French and commented by all spheres of interest around Iboga in Gabon. I am only the tip of the iceberg coming to meet you to evoke intellectual property rights of indigenous people of Africa. For the last 10 years, I've been mainly involved into the conservation of Gabon cultural natural heritage. I am consulted by various local NGOs and by certain administrative authorities, but also by international organizations, notably Conservation Justice, part of Eagle Network, leader in the fight against illegal exploitation of fauna and flora in Africa. With them, I work mainly on ivory trafficking, which is also closely linked to the growth of the Iboga and Ibogaine market in the world. Indeed, where you find Iboga, you find elephants not far away, in the African equatorial forest. The poachers know it very well. The elephants of this region of the world covet the Iboga to heal, protect, and reproduce themselves. Elephants are the first Iboga planters. In the equatorial forest, less elephants equal less Iboga, just like less Iboga equal less elephants. Many other animals and insects are linked to this plant, which has not yet revealed all its mysteries. Let us note the fact that the word Iboga is derived from the member group from Gabon, Bogaga, which means to heal. As for knowing all that it can heal, we are still far from having made the turn of it. Indeed, there is a whole interdependent, interconnected ecosystem around the Iboga, whole vegetal, animal, and human universe, which is important to understand and conserve. A sum of ancestral knowledge and a well of research within the reach of humanity truly concerned about the democratic. But the poachers are only interested in the exponential market value of the Iboga sold on the international market. at an average of €3 per gram. They do not deprive themselves anymore to come and plunder within the national parks, where the Iboga is supposed to be preserved, notably to be even more studied in its environment of predilection. This is why, in 2015, on the advice of the Executive Secretary of the National Parks of Gabon, Professor Lee White, I founded and co-direct, alongside David Nassim, Doctor of Chinese Medicine, a social enterprise called Blessings of the Forest, BOTF. BOTF is dedicated to the conservation, study, and sustainable equitable valorization of Gabonese genetic and cultural resources in general, and Iboga in particular. We are currently funding 7 community projects representing a total of more than 10,000 Iboga trees planted and conserved. 70% of the income generated by the sector will go back to the village communities, and 30% will be donated to BOTF to reinvest in the development of the projects. We are developing a kind of social agricultural cooperative, mainly located in community forest under a sustainable development contract with the Gabonese state. We offer an alternative to deforestation and human-wildlife conflict. The global vision is one addict healed, equal, nature and an ancestral heritage of humanity protected. Dimitri Moudjanis called this from pygmies to junkies. Ibogaine is not only at the service of human health, but also of the planet and of respect between peoples. In 2020, we signed a partnership agreement with the Gabonese Ministry of Water and Forest for a period of 5 years concerning the development of fair and sustainable forest products other than timber, of which Iboga is a natural part. To do this, we have set up a local non-governmental structure funded from England by BOTF CIC and supported by different types of donors. BOTF Gabon as honorary president Professor Jean-Noël Gassita, Dean of World Research on Iboga, and has President Mrs. Marilou Miboka, a nurse born in the tradition known as the Sacred Root. Please excuse their absence due to their age and their workloads linked to the epidemic context. However, we have here Mr. Aristide Ngema, Information Systems Consultant and Executive Director of BOTF NGO based in Gabon. I first came to know Iboga personally in 2004 in France with Mr. Ngema, when this divine plant and its many pharmaceutical transformations were not yet totally banned. It should be pointed out that France has been studying Iboga since 1864 because of its tumultuous colonial relationship with Gabon. Professor Dubovsky and Landrin extracted and isolated for the first time in the world the major alkaloids and then the major alkaloids that they named Ibogaine in 1901, 120 years ago today. Ibogaine and other numerous products derived from Iboga were marketed and even popularized in France, notably with Nirdal Dragé from 1906 and Lambaréne until the end of the 60s, when the US and the WHO prohibited this therapeutic revolution due, according to the legend, to the failure of supposed clinical tests on Afro-Americans living for the Vietnam War. There is even talk of more or less secret and consequential work, which has never stopped in the USA and Israel, on the use of Ibogaine for military purposes concerning war veterans and the treatment of their post-traumatic stress disorders. During this time in France, Iboga continued its path because it was not completely forbidden and even still sold notably in mother tincture and homeopathy by the Boiron laboratory. The links between Gabon remain very strong, and the Gabonese diaspora is spreading in France with its culture and its raw material. My encounter with Ibogaine took place through Iboga in a personal associative therapeutic framework supervised by Mr. Ngema, Gabonese then resident in France. Mr. Ngema, then working with me on a e-learning project in Gabon, developed a half traditional, half contemporary approach called plant-derived, balancing knowledge from each hemisphere. This gentle technique generates measurable results that are often very impressive. These sessions were designed for profiles like a wide variety of pathologies, but did not require an absolute clinical framework. Simply under the supervision of a multidisciplinary volunteer team, including at least one nurse, and in some cases a doctor. The approach is divided into 3 phases: physical and psychological preparation, meticulous support during the medical treatment, and long-term integration. Indeed, in Gabon, Iboga represents the key to an infinite invisible world. Venturing there alone or badly accompanied can be very destructive and more psychologically than physically. In Gabon, it is not claimed that the Iboga is recommended for whoever wants it, nor administered in any way. Numerous consultations and preliminary care are necessary, but also the follow-up is done over at least 1 year, with a social framework, advice, and particular rhythm. In order to have the right to give the Iboga to someone who has never eaten it, traditionally, the path to follow is comparable to a medical school course. It regularly takes more than 10 years of study and practice, and is very expensive. In 2007, the association chaired by Mr. Ngena had to be dissolved because of the total ban of Iboga in France, as well as the practice of BWETE, following the death of a man during an opiate detoxification treatment orchestrated by a French doctor who had hastily converted to a neo-shaman. This unfortunate haste has heavily penalized many people in France. First of all, the Gabonese diaspora was then deprived of practicing its own ancestral tradition in a country which has colonized them. But also French scientific research, particularly in Paris with Professor Olivenstein, who was about to launch clinical trials on his patient suffering from opiate addictions. Since these years, I have followed from lone or by far around 1,000 treatments and rare occasions Iboga in sometimes radically opposed framework, going from pygmies in deep forest to white coats and clinics full of electronics. Some theorize cleverly with the help of microscopes and computer, and then carry out tests on rats and dogs, while others experiment the full potential of the plants, discreetly on themselves since the dawn of time. In passing, I also met a nice bunch of gurus from unlikely horizons, trapped by the most perverse side effect of Ibogaine, ego inflammation. A bit like cocaine in short. Because yes, Ibogaine acts mainly on the central nervous system and gives a completely differential leaf to our thinking. This is why the most passionate people talk about entheogenic substance. That is to say that it gives you the sensation of God in you. It's not nothing, hey friends. But as the wise man purely said, without mastery power is nothing. This is one of the reasons why serious supervision, especially social supervision, is necessary around this medicine. On this subject, it would be good to look at the 1,000-year-old experience of the guardians of the genetic resource, wouldn't it? This is also the whole meaning of the Nagoya Protocol, which I will come back to it in more details during the contextual presentation. In 2011, the Sylvia Bongo Ondimba Foundation, First Lady of the Gabonese Republic of Gabon, the Republic of Gabon, then engaged in the development of new rural economic sectors for the benefits mainly of women. She commissioned Professor Gassita and myself to carry out a precise and cross-cutting inventory of the state of the art of Iboga, particularly in view of the pressure felt in the Gabonese national public domain.